नमस्कार दोस्तों, मैं हूं सचिन और आपका मेरे चैनल पे बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। दोस्तों आज हम डिस्कस करने जा रहे हैं द प्रोलॉग टू द कैंटरबरी टेल्स, जो कि द कैंटरबरी टेल्स का फर्स्ट पार्ट है। इस पार्ट को हम आज डिटेल में जानने की कोशिश करेंगे, तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं। सो दिस पार्ट, द प्रोलॉग स्टार्ट्स विद द फॉलोइंग लाइन, दैट इज़ व्हेन दैट अप्रैल विद हिज शावर सूट the drought of March had burst to the root. So the prologue starts with the praising of the April, with the praising of the springs. That April is the month of showers. Joseph says that the April is the month of showers and the drought of March has been wiped out. So in the general prologue of the Canterbury Tales, Geoffrey Chaucer introduced the setting of the spring with April rains, blooming flowers and word song, inspiring a sense of pilgrimage. This time of year, people feel compelled to travel, and many pilgrims choose to visit the shrine of Saint Thomas of Becket at Canterbury Cathedral, seeking blessings and thanking the saint for the past help. While preparing for his pilgrimage, the narrator Chaucer states at the Taward in Southwark. वो वहाँ पे he meets a diverse group of 29 fellow travelers journeying to Canterbury. The group agrees to let him join. तो ग्रुप जो है वो मान जाता है कि चौसर उन्हें ज्वाइन कर ले, and then they all rest at the inn overnight, and then early morning they departure for their journey. Before they embark on the journey, the narrator intends to introduce each group member. This sets the stage for the following storytelling context, as each pilgrim is characterized by their distinct social roles and personalities, shaping the tales they share on their way to Canterbury. So, the medieval social theory divided a society or the characters into three broad classes called estates. First of all, we have military, the second is clergy, and the third one is the laity or the nobility. The knight and squire represent the military estate, the prioress, her nun, and three priests, and the monk represent the clergy, the friar, and the parson. The other characters, from the wealthy franklin to the poor plowman, are the laity members. These lay characters can be further subdivided into landowners, that is the franklin, professionals, that is the clerk, the physician, and the plowman, laborers such as the miller, the manciple, and the reeve, and church officers such as the summoner and the pardoner. So the prologue starts describing the characters. Here Joseph starts describing the character and he starts with the knight. अब knight जो है, in the narrator's eyes, knight is the noblest of the pilgrims, embodying military prowess, loyalty, honor, generosity, and good manners. Knight conducts himself politely and mildly, never saying an unkind word about anyone. जो knight है Canterbury Tales में, he is a true medieval hero. He rides at the front of the group and is admired by both the host and the narrator. He stands for chivalry, honor, bravery, loyalty, generosity, and refinement. His military career is impressive. He fought in the crusades across Europe, the Middle East, and Russia. Despite his battles, he is humble and kind, wearing a simple rust-stained tunic from his latest expedition. But here's the twist. Though he is a warrior, he actually hates conflict. He prefers happy stories over tragic ones, and even stops an argument between the partner and the host. The knight may be a fighter, but deep down he is a romantic idealist who wants peace. The next character जो चौसर इंट्रोड्यूस करते हैं that is squire, and squire जो है वो knight का ही बेटा है. He is about 20 years old and he acts as his father's squire or apprentice. Though the squire has also fought in battles with great strength and agility, he is also devoted to love like his father. He is a strong, beautiful, curly-haired young man dressed in clothes embroidered with dainty flowers. The squire fights. He also fights, but he fights to win his lady. His talents are those of the courtly lover, singing, playing the flute, drawing, writing, and riding, and he loves so passionately that he gets little sleep at night. वो एक ड्यूटीफुल सन है एंड ही फुलफिल्स ऑल हिज रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टुवर्ड्स हिज फादर सच एज कार्विंग हिज मीट. हिज टेल, जो स्टोरी वो सुनाता है, दैट मिरर्स हिज पर्सनैलिटी, फॉलोइंग ट्रेंड्स ऑफ मिडाइवल रोमांस विद ब्रेव एंड रोमांटिक डीड्स, However, the story is left unfinished, cutting off just as it begins to get interesting. Some scholars believe this was Chaucer's intention, highlighting the sequoia's youthful tendency to be overly enthusiastic and take too long to reach the point. Accompanying the knight and the sequoia is the knight's yeoman, freeborn servant. The yeoman wears green from head to toe and carries an enormous bow, beautifully feathered arrows, a sword, and a small sheet. His gear and attire suggest that he is a forester. इसके बाद नरेटर डिस्क्राइब्स करते हैं प्रायरस को, जिसका नाम है मैडम एग्लेंटीन. ऑल्दो द प्रायरस इज नॉट पार्ट ऑफ द रॉयल कोर्ट, शी डज हर बेस्ट टू इमिटेट इट्स मैनर्स. She eats food daintily. She reaches for food on the table delicately and wipes her lip clean of grease before drinking from her cup. वो फ्रेंच भी बोलती है but with a provincial English accent. She is compassionate toward animals, weeping when she sees a mouse caught in a trap and feeding her dogs roasted meat and milk. The narrator says that her features are pretty, even her enormous forehead. She wears a set of prayer beads on her arm, from which hangs a gold brooching featuring the Latin words "Love conquers all." Another nun and 3 priests accompany her. The prioress, Madame Eglinton, is another example of corrupt church leadership in the Canterbury Tales. Instead of focusing on her religious duties, she obsesses overtly courtly manners and wealth. She treats her pet dogs better than most, feeding them fine meat and white bread reserved for the rich. Her elegant clothes and golden brooch inscribed with Amor Vincit Omnia, Love Conquers All, suggest she is more concerned with appearances than faith. Notably, the narrator never mentions her clerical work or devotion to Christianity. Her tale is infamous for its extreme anti-Semitism, portraying Jewish people as villains in a gruesome miracle story. Since Jews had been expelled from England in 1290, she had no real experience with them, yet she fixates on them as an enemy. This could be seen as a way to distract from her own corruption, shifting focus away from her vanity and greed by telling a story designed to provoke outrage and fear. Our next character we have is the monk. Monk is the next pilgrim the narrator describes, extremely handsome. He loves hunting and keeps many horses. He is an outrider at his monastery. He looks after the monastery's business with the external world, and his horse's bridle can be heard jingling in the wind as clearly and loudly as a church bell. The monk is aware that the rule of his monastic order discourages monks from engaging in activities like hunting, but he dismisses such strictures as birthless. The narrator says that he agrees with the monk. Why should the monk drive himself crazy with study of manual labor? The fat, bald, and well-dressed monk resembles a prosperous lord. The monk in the Canterbury Tales is a character who rejects the traditional lifestyle expected of monks. Rather than focusing on scripture, he spends his time hunting, an activity considered improper for clergy. He also indulges in lavish clothing and hunting equipment, flaunting his wealth and status. His physical presence is imposing, with loud bells on his horse's bridle, so loud they are compared to chapel bells, symbolizing his misplaced priorities. The narrator describes him as a manly man. The host jokes that if he hadn't joined the clergy, he would have been a ladies' man. Despite his unmonastic behavior, the monk tells a tale filled with tragic stories from classical, biblical, and historical sources. His choice of the tale seems to respond to the host teasing, using a conventional, serious narrative to counter the host's comment about his unmonk-like appearance and lifestyle. The next company member is the friar, a member of a religious order who lives entirely by begging. This friar is jovial, pleasure-loving, well-spoken, and socially agreeable. He hears confessions and assigns very easy penance to people who donate money. For this reason, he is very popular with wealthy landowners throughout the country. He justifies his leniency by arguing that donating money to friars is a sign of true repentance, even if the penitent cannot shed tears. He also became popular with innkeepers and barmaids who could give him food and drink. He pays no attention to beggars and lepers because they can't help him or his fraternal order. Despite his woe of poverty, the donations he extracts allows him to dress richly and live quite merrily. The friar in the Canterbury Tales is a corrupt clergyman known for his charm and persuasive speaking. He is a womanizer, well acquainted with many women, and the narrator hints at possible sexual misconduct, suggesting he may have paid dowries for women he had affairs with. As an alms collector, he uses his silver tongue to persuade people to donate money, which he likely spends on his luxurious lifestyle. The friar and the summoner are rivals, both extorting money from people in exchange for forgiveness or avoiding punishment. Their stories reflect this competition, with the friar's tale about a curse possibly challenging the summoner's claim that money can avoid excommunication. Though the friar's methods are more subtle, his corruption mirrors the summoner's. Next we have merchant. Tastefully attired in nice boots and an imported fur hat, he speaks constantly of his profits. The merchant is good at borrowing money, but clever enough to keep anyone from knowing he is in debt. The narrator does not know his name. The merchant in the Canterbury Tales represents the rising merchant class of Chaucer's time, which was accumulating wealth and challenging traditional social hierarchies. Though the merchant appears successful with a luxurious wardrobe and foreign policy knowledge, his debt and shallow financial success suggest a critique of this new class. He is portrayed as bitter, particularly toward the idea of a virtuous wife, which leads him to tell a rowdy tale about marriage. Despite the tale's low content, his high-style storytelling highlights the social shift of merchants striving for nobility status but remaining outside it. And then we have the clerk of Oxford. After the merchant comes the clerk, a thin and threadbare philosophy student at Oxford who devours books instead of food. He speaks little, but his words are wise and full of moral virtue when he does. Okay, the next man we have is the man of law or the sergeant of law. The man of law, an influential lawyer, is a wise character capable of preparing flawless legal documents. He is very wheezy, but he appears even wheezier than he actually is. He is portrayed as a wealthy, dignified figure, but Chaucer subtly questions his authenticity. Though man of law appears wise and learned, the narrator suggests his wisdom may be more about appearances, and he may not be as wheezy and virtuous as he seems. Despite these flaws, his tale tells of a righteous woman, Constance, who embodies Christian ideals of patience and passivity, contrasting with a villainous Muslim mother-in-law. Some scholars argue that this reflects the man of law's view on women, potentially setting up a contrast with the wife of Bath's more assertive views. Next character we have is the Franklin. He is the white-bearded Franklin is a wealthy gentleman, farmer, possessed of lands but not of noble birth. Franklin means free man. In Chaucer's society, a Franklin was neither a vassal of a lord nor a member of the aristocracy. This specific Franklin is a food and wine lover, so much so that his table is set and ready for meals all day. Food is so plenteous in his house that his house seems to snow meat and drink. Next, the narrator describes the 5 guildsmen, all artisans. They are dressed in the livery or uniform of their guild. The narrator compliments their shiny dress and mentions that each is fit to be a city official. Listed together, the 5 guildsmen appear as a unit. English guilds were a combination of labor unions and social fraternities. Craftsmen of similar occupations joined to increase their bargaining power and live communally. All 5 guildsmen are clad in the livery of their brotherhood. The cook works for the guildman. Chaucer gives little detail about him, although he mentions a crusty sore on the cook's leg. Next we have the shipman. The hardy shipman wears a dagger on a cord around his neck. While on his ship, he steals wine from the merchant he is transporting while he sleeps. Next we have is the physician. The taffeta-clad physician bases his practice of medicine and surgery on a thorough knowledge of astronomy and the 4 humors. He has a good setup with his apothecaries because they make each other money. He is well acquainted with ancient and modern medical authorities but reads little scripture. He is somewhat frugal, and the narrator jokes that the doctor's favorite medicine is gold. Since he can heal most illnesses and knows the cause, the doctor is among the greatest in his field. Even while the doctor maintains excellent physical health, The narrator questions his spiritual well-being because he has an unhealthy obsession with money and hardly checks the Bible. Next, we have the wife of Bath. Next, the narrator describes a slightly deaf wife of Bath. This keen seamstress is always first to the offspring at Mass. She gets upset if someone goes ahead of her. She wears head coverings to Mass that the narrator guesses must weigh 10 pounds. She has had 5 husbands and has taken 3 pilgrimages to Jerusalem. She has also visited Rome, Cologne, and other exotic pilgrimage sites. Her teeth have gaps between them, and she sits comfortably astride her horse. The wife is jolly and talkative and gives good advice about love because she has had lots of experience. The wife of Bath is one of the most fascinating characters in the Canterbury Tales. She is a well-travelled woman, having gone on many pilgrimages, so the trip to Canterbury is easy for her. With 5 husbands behind her, she is worldly in love and life experiences. She dresses in rich, extravagant clothing, scarlet stockings, fresh leather shoes, and heavy head coverings, all signs of her wealth. As a skilled seamstress from Bath, a major cloth-making town, her work even rivals the famous cloth makers of Belgium and the Netherlands. Confident and outspoken, the wife is sharp and street smart rather than book smart. In a world where women had little power, she learned to survive by controlling her relationships. Her biggest weapon, her own body, she withholds intimacy until her husband gives her what she wants, making her a master of negotiation in a male-dominated society. Next, we have the parson, who is a gentle and poor village parson. Pure of conscience and true to the teachings of Christ, the parson enjoys preaching and instructing his parishioners, but he hates excommunicating those who cannot pay their tithes. He walks with his staff to visit all his parishioners, no matter how far away. He believes a priest must be pure because he serves as an example for his congregation and flock. The parson is dedicated to his parish and does not seek a better appointment. He is even kind to sinners, preferring to teach them by example rather than scorn. The parson in the Canterbury Tales starkly contrasts the corrupt clergy members. He is honest, devout, and dedicated to serving his parishioners, even giving away his money. He is reluctant to take tithes from the poor, showing his focus on charity over church hierarchy. The parson lives by the teachings of Christ, embodying them before preaching. His tale is actually a sermon where he rejects storytelling as mere fables and instead focuses on repentance, reflecting his sincere Christian devotion amidst the pilgrim's context. Next, we have the plowman. The plowman is the parson's brother and is as kind-hearted as parson. As a peasant, he pays his tithes to the church and lives a decent Christian life. Next, we have the miller. The red-haired miller loves crude, bawdy jokes and drinking. He is immensely stout and strong. He is able to lift doors off their hinges or knock them down by running at them with his head. He has a wart on his nose with bright red hairs sticking out of it like bristles, black nostrils, and a mouth like a furnace. He wears a sword and buckler, jokes, and tells dirty stories. He steals from his customers and plays the bagpipes. The miller is defined by his brute strength and loud, boisterous nature. He is so strong he can tear a door off its hinges, hinting at his aggressive and reckless personality. He is also a dishonest businessman, cheating customers out of their grain. More brawn than brain, he has little self-control and often disrupts conversation. Drunkenly forcing his way into the storytelling order, Mirror shares a rowdy and deceitful tale that mirrors his own personality. In his tale, Alison tricks her husband into cheating on him, humiliates another suitor, and cares anxious with pranks and pain. While entertaining, the tale highlights Miller's crude and unruly nature, reflecting Chaucer's commentary on his social class. Next character we have is the Manciple. The Manciple stalks an inn of court, school of law with provisions. Uneducated though he is, this Manciple is smarter than most lawyers he serves. The next character we have is the Reeve. The spinely angry Reeve has hair so short that he reminds the narrator of a priest. He manages his lord's estate so well that he can hoard his own money and property in a miserly fashion. The reeve is also a good carpenter who always rides behind everybody else. The reeve in the Canterbury Tales is a shrewd estate manager who profits from his master's ignorance. He disrupts social hierarchy by embodying traits of the clergy, nobility, and working class. Despite being wealthy, he is not part of the gentry. His choleric nature is evident when he takes offense at Miller's tale, particularly because it features a cuckolded carpenter. Retaliating, the reeve tells a darker, mean-spirited tale about a dishonest Miller. The reeve's need to quit Miller shows his tendency to take things personally, reflecting his quick temper and sensitivity to slights. Next character we have is the summoner. The summoner arraigns those accused of violating church law. When drunk, he ostentatiously spouts the few Latin phrases he knows. His face is bright red from an unspecified disease. He uses his power corruptly for his gain. He is extremely lecherous and uses his position to dominate the young woman in his jurisdiction. In exchange for a quart of wine, he would let another man sleep with his girlfriend for a year and then pardon the man completely. The summoner in the Canterbury Tales represents the corruption within the church. He uses his position to extort money by offering pardons, showing a deep hypocrisy. His physical appearance, marked by pockmarks and hair loss, reflects his vices like alcoholism or syphilis. In retaliation for the friar's tale, the summoner tells a rowdy, humorous story, focusing on worldly matters rather than spirituality. His choice of genre highlights his character. He is more interested in earthly pleasures than moral lessons. Chaucer uses the summoner's tale to expose the flaws of the summoner and the friar, critiquing their roles in the church. The pardoner, who had just been in the court of Rome, rides with the summoner. He sings with his companion and has long flowing yellow hair. The narrator mentions that the pardoner thinks he rides fashionably with nothing covering his head. He has brought back many souvenirs from his trip to Rome. The narrator compares the pardoner's high voice to that of a goat and mentions that he thinks the pardoner might have been a homosexual. The narrator mocks the pardoner for his disrespectful manipulation of the poor for his material gain. In charge of selling papal indulgences, he is despised by the church and most churchgoers for counterfeiting pardons and pocketing the money. The narrator admits that the pardoner is a good preacher, storyteller, and singer, although he argues it is only because he cheats people for their money in that way. The pardoner is the most marginalized character in the Canterbury Tales, riding at the back of the group. His profession is shady. He sells indulgences and posts pardons for sins, but he likely keeps the money for himself. Many people in Chaucer's time were already skeptical of pardoners, suspecting them of forging documents and profiting off fake relics. Chaucer's pardoner is particularly untrustworthy. He travels with a sack of forged indulgences and false relics, including pig bones he claims are saints' remains. He even sings with the corrupt summoner, further undermining his credibility. His gender and sexuality are ambiguous, making him even more of an outsider. Despite preaching against greed, the pardoner is the embodiment of it. After his tale about the dangers of avarice, he shamelessly tries to sell indulgences to the pilgrims, openly violating the hostess' rules. His hypocrisy and manipulation make him one of the group's most fascinating yet dishonest figures. Next we have Chaucer. The narrator of the Canterbury Tales, called Chaucer in the text, isn't necessarily the real Chaucer. He is friendly and enthusiastic, but not always sincere. He praises the pilgrims, but his descriptions often reveal their flaws, like how he calls the friar virtuous but then mentions his expensive clothes, hinting at corruption. When introducing the monk, he jokingly agrees that monks shouldn't just study all day, even though that was their duty, making it unclear if he is being sarcastic or clueless. His own stories add to the mystery. Sir Topaz is a silly, poorly written tale that the host interrupts because it's so awful. In response, the narrator tells Malaby, the tale of Malaby, a serious and heavy prose story the host enjoys. Some think this is revenge, while others believe he is just trying to please the group. Overall, the narrator seems eager to keep people happy while subtly pointing out their flaws, just like a medieval writer who had to entertain his patrons. Next, we have Harry Bailey. The host is cheerful and friendly, taking charge of the storytelling and context and maintaining order. He organizes the pilgrims, guiding the tone and content of each tale, and even intervenes when necessary, like resolving conflicts between the friar and summoner. His ongoing commentary helps readers follow the story and themes. The host treats everyone equally, regardless of social class, reflecting his role as an innkeeper who must host and please a diverse group, making him the perfect MC for the pilgrimage. We also have the second nun, who is not described in the general prologue, but she tells a saint's life for her tale. Like the second nun, the nun's priest is also not described in the general prologue. His story of Chanticleer, however, is well crafted and suggests that he is a witty, self effacing preacher. After introducing all the pilgrims, the narrator apologizes for any harm the reader may get from his stories, emphasizing that he must be faithful in duplicating the characters' remarks, even if they are nasty or disgusting. He uses Christ and Plato to bolster his point that speaking openly and conveying the truth is better than lying. He then returns to his account of his first night with the pilgrims. The inn host welcomes the pilgrims, praising their merriment and offering free entertainment. He proposes a storytelling context. Each pilgrim will tell 2 tales on the way to Canterbury and 2 on the return. The best storyteller, judged by the host, will win a free meal paid for by the others. If anyone disputes his judgment, they must cover all pilgrimage expenses. The group agrees, making the host their governor and judge. The next morning, he organizes the journey and has then draws straws to pick the first storyteller. The knight wins and begins his tale. So the prologue ends over here, and then knight begins his tale in the next part, which we will discuss furthermore. Finally, I end the video over here, and I hope you like the video. And if you like the video, then please like, share and comment on the video, and subscribe the channel for further such updates. Thank you very much for watching the video. Have a great day.